Now in this video, we are going to take up the types of conversions. So to do that, so first is the definition. The process of converting the data from one data type to another data type is called type conversion. So if you have an implicit conversion, number one, for example, 1 divided by 2.0. After conversion, what happens? 1.0 divided by 2.0, the result is 0.5 followed by 5 zeros. That is the implicit conversion. So what is the explicit conversion? Example, 1 divided by float 2. So explicitly we are doing that. After conversion, what happens? Example, that is because it is float here, so that becomes converted. That 2 which was the integer earlier has been converted into 2.0. Since this becomes 2.0, so naturally this also automatically converts into 1.0. So the result is 0.5 followed by 5 zeros. So implicit conversion means what? The process of conversion of data from lower rank to a higher rank automatically by the C compiler is called implicit conversion or promotion. So what does that mean? Here in this case, in the first case, if you are taking an example 1 divided by 2.0, so 2.0 is the higher rank and 1 is the integer which is the lower rank. So automatically compiler converts the lower rank into higher rank. That means 1 which was an integer, because of the floating constant whatever you have, so naturally this integer has been converted automatically into the float. So that is the reason why you are getting 1.0. So such a type of conversion is called implicit conversion. So how the actually data type with lower rank to the higher rank which goes? It begins with char, that is the character, short int, unsigned integer, long integer, unsigned long int, float and double. The data type with higher rank is the double, which is the maximum one, as it progresses from lower rank to the higher rank. Now suppose if you are considering an expression 4.0 by 3. So what does it does? In the numerator 4.0, so it is the data type is float, divided by 3, which is without decimal point, so integer. So the result what you should get is the higher rank, because the lower rank is converted automatically into the higher rank, it will become float. So 4.0 by 3, which will going to be 4.0 divided by 3.0, which will be equal to 1 point followed by 5 threes, which is equal to float. Suppose if you are considering the second case, we have an integer p is equal to 7 and float q is equal to 2. So then I am declaring the result of these two as r, which is again the float. So r is equal to p by q. So what will going to be the output? R is equal to p divided by q. So p integer, it is converted into, because it is a lower rank, it is converted automatically into a higher rank by the C compiler, which becomes 7.0 divided by 2.0, which will be equal to 3.5. So for example, if you are considering the third one, int which is x is equal to 7 and again integer y is equal to 2. So what will going to be the integer z? That is the result of these two. Suppose if z is equal to 7 by 2, again both are integers. So integer by integer will always, the result will give you the integer. So it has to become 3 only, because since it is an integer, the result of the resultant also, the result value of these two will also be an integer. So it will truncate the value of 3.5. That 0.5 is truncated and the display as 3. So here no conversion takes place since both operands of the same type int, and hence the result must be the type int. So that is what we got here. Need for explicit type conversion. What is the need? What need for the explicit? If the operands are of the same data type, no conversion takes place by the compiler. Sometimes the type conversion is required to get the desired result. So since I want to get the desired result, then I need to forcibly convert. In such a case, the programmer can instruct the compiler to change the type of the operand from one data type to the another data type. This forcible conversion from one data type to another data type is called the explicit type conversion. So type expression, for example, if I want int only, that is I want integer only, but it has the variable, it has 9.43, which is a float. So the display will going to be just 9. So where type is the required type of expression, expression can be an operand such as variable or a constant. For example, if I say I is equal to int 8.999, so 8.9999 is truncated to 8 and is stored in the memory location of I, which is equal to 8. I is equal to 8. So now here int of 5.99 divided by int of 2.4. So since it is a explicit conversion, so we are forcibly converting that floating point number, that is 5.99, to int. So naturally it becomes 5. So 5.99 is truncated to 5, and again int of 2.4. The 2.4 is truncated to get 2, which results in 5 by 2. So both are the same type of integer type. 5 divided by 2, which is equal to 2. So I will be equal to 2. So float 1 by 2. So 1 is converted into 1.0. Now implicit conversion is done on 2. Why? Because the numerator is a float. So automatically this is float 1, which is forcibly you are converting. So that is the explicit conversion. Then divided by 2. So float divided by integer. So the integer is automatically converted into float because of the implicit conversion is done on 2. So we get 1.0 by 2.0. Hence the result and psi will be equal to 0.5 followed by 5 zeros. Suppose if I have int p is equal to 7, int q is equal to 2, then float r should be there. So r is equal to p by q. So 7 by 2, which will be equal to 3.000. How it is possible? It should be 3.500, 3.500. So note in this example, to get the correct answer 3.5, what should I do? So here, because here it is showing 3.000 because here int p is equal to 7. So naturally it is an integer, and q is equal to 2. Again it is an integer. Integer by integer is always gives the integer value. But the float value, the declaration of the variable float is there, which is r. So naturally the result what it is going to be given here, which is going to be 3.000, because the int by int will always yield an int. But since it is the float r what you have been declared, the result will going to be displayed on 3.40, because you are converting the result of the integer value of r is converted into float. So 3.00. So in this example, to get the correct answer 3.5, what should I do now? I should go for an explicit conversion. So what is that? I will say r is equal to float of p by q. So once if I go for float p, so float is converted forcibly. So explicit conversion. So float p, which becomes 7.0 divided by 2. So explicit type of conversion. Then what happens? 7.0, because it is the numerator is a float, so naturally automatically the 2.2 which is converted into 2.0. So here what happens? The compiler itself will going to changes that. So naturally it becomes the implicit conversion. Then the result what you will going to get will be 3.5 followed by 5 zeros. So this is how you will be able to apply the conversions on the variables, so that you will be able to get the desired results. So assume, suppose a is an integer with a value 3. Evaluate the following expression. Suppose a, float a by 10, if you say. So what happens? Float a divided by 10. Int a is equal to 3, suppose, the first case. Float within brackets a by 10, if you are considering. So 10 divided by 3. So 10 into 0 is 0. So you are going to get 3 here. So this float 0 you are getting here, that will be equal to 0.0. So this is the quotient, this is the remainder. Then float A divided by 10 will be always 0. Why? Because here 10 divided by 3. Can you divide that? It is not possible. So 10 into 0 is 0. So 3 becomes 3. So float of 0 will be equal to 0.0. The quotient value what you are getting. Float A by 10 is equal to 0.0. Suppose if you take the second expression, float A only you are converting by 10. Int A is equal to 3. Float A by 10. So float 3 divided by 10 after the explicit conversion, because you are forcibly converting the integer into float. So 3.0 by 10.0. Now you are going to have the conversion factor, which is 10.0. Then what happens? Is equal to 0.3. So float A divided by 10 will going to give, float A divided by 10 will going to give you 0.3. So this is how you will be able to explain that. If you are considering again, if I want to give an explanation here, int A is equal to 3. 3 by 10 what happens? Both are of integer type. So 10 divided by 3, which is again 0 only, because both are integer. So it actually the answer is 0.3. But you will not be able to get 0.3 because both are integers here. So that is the reason why it becomes 0 here. So that is the reason why he says 0. Float of 0, which will be, so it is an integer. But since you are explicitly converting that float of 0, so it becomes 0.0. So that is how it will going to be. The same thing when you are applying here, the float A, you are forcibly converting A into a float function. So that means int A is equal to 3.0 now. Instead of 3, it becomes 3.0 here. So since you are using float 3 here, so it explicitly converting that 3 into 3.0. Once 3.0 divided by 10. But again, the denominator is automatically converted into float. So that becomes an implicit conversion. So 10.0 by 3.0 by 10.0, which becomes 0.3. So float A divided by 10 will going to give you 0.3. So this is how the conversion explanation can be given. So in the next video, we will going to take up write a program to read the marks of 3 subjects and find the average. Thank you.